The castration chute was running blood by 9 in the morning, and Frank
closed
Dawson
now.
had already
Watch the
lost
herd.
count of how many calves they'd processed. 60, maybe 70. The bawling never stopped, just rolled across the Texas heat like thunder that wouldn't break. He stood at the corral fence, hat pulled low, watching Clyde work the blade with the efficiency of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. Quick, clean, no hesitation. The kind of work that separated ranchers from people who thought they wanted to be ranchers. Frank was 60 years old, owned 1,200 acres that his grandfather had bled for. His father had died protecting, and he'd defended every day since he was old enough to ride. The Dawson Ranch wasn't the biggest operation in West Texas, but it was his, free and clear. And that mattered more than size ever could. "Next one," Clyde called, wiping the blade on his jeans. A young hand named Tommy pushed another calf into the chute. The animal kicked, twisted, but the metal held. Clyde moved in. 3 seconds later, it was done. Frank didn't flinch. This was ranching. Not the romantic version people saw in movies. The real version. The one that smelled like manure and sweat and required a stomach most folks didn't have. "How many left?" Frank asked. Clyde looked toward the holding pen. 20, maybe 30. "We'll be done by noon if the chute holds." Frank nodded, turned to scan the pens. That's when he saw it. The side gate. The one that led to the pasture bordering the Grimm
There
property.
they are.
It was open.
Open
Not
the
wide,
gate, I said open
just
it.
cracked.
We're running out of time.
Maybe 6 inches. But 6 inches was all it took. "Clyde!" Frank's voice went flat. "Yeah, boss? Who opened the south gate?" Clyde looked up, saw it, went pale. Oh, hell! Frank was already moving, boots hitting dirt, heart pounding in a way it hadn't in years. He crossed the yard in 20 strides, grabbed the gate, slammed it shut. Too late. He knew it before he even looked. Bones was gone. Frank stood there, hand on the gate, staring at the empty pasture beyond. The bullpen sat 30 yards east, custom built, reinforced steel, designed specifically to hold one animal. Bones. His 3-year-old Angus bull. Registered. Papered. Worth more than Frank's truck, his tractor, and half his herd combined.
It was my fault.
And the pen door was open. "Tommy!" Frank's voice cracked like a whip.
We gotta move,
The young
Frank.
hand came running,
They're
face
coming up
already
from the
guilty.
South Ridge, and I saw the dust cloud
"Did you open
myself.
this gate?"
Sure about that,
I
kid?
thought it was the feed run gate. I swear, Mr. Dawson, I didn't mean... Where's Bones? Tommy pointed south, toward the fence line, toward the property that hadn't been friendly territory in 40 years, toward Walter Grimm's land. Frank felt his chest tighten, not from fear, from fury so old it had roots deeper than the fence posts separating the two
I'm
ranches.
going as fast as I can, Frank.
Clyde,
They're jumping.
get the horses. Boss, maybe we should get the horses. Clyde knew better than to argue. 10 minutes later, Frank sat in the saddle, scanning the horizon. Clyde rode beside him, quiet. They crossed into the south pasture, following hoof prints in the dirt. Big prints. Heavy. Deliberate. Bones wasn't running. He was walking. Calm. Like he owned the place. They reached the fence line. And there he was. On the other side. Bones stood in Walter Grimm's pasture, head down, tearing into grass like he'd been there his whole life. 50 yards beyond him, a small herd of Hereford cows grazed, oblivious.
After everything that's happened.
Frank's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached.
Perhaps if we just look at the numbers again.
"Boss," Clyde said carefully, "we can cut the fence, get him back before anyone notices." "No. Frank, I'm not cutting my own fence and giving Grimm an excuse to say I'm trespassing. We do this right." He turned his horse toward the Grimm ranch house, visible in the distance. White paint peeling, roof sagging on one end. The place looked like it was barely holding on, which Frank took a small, petty satisfaction in noticing. They rode up the drive, dismounted. Frank knocked on the door. It opened. Walter Grimm stood there in a stained undershirt and jeans, held up by suspenders that had seen better decades. 58 years old,
I understand your
lean,
concerns, both of you.
weathered,
But
eyes
trust
the
me
color
on
of
this,
winter
it's
sky.
the only way
He looked at
forward for the
Frank,
ranch.
then at
We
Clyde,
stick to the
then
plan.
passed them to the horses. "Dawson. Grimm. What do you want?" Frank kept his voice level. barely. My bull's in your pasture. Gate got left open. I'm here to get him back. Walter's expression didn't change. That right? That's right. Walter stepped onto the porch, crossed his arms. You sure it's your bull?
You think this is funny? You
I'm
got
sure.
exactly what you wanted, didn't you?
How do I know you didn't
Relax,
just let him
Frank.
loose on purpose?
It's just business.
Trying to cause trouble? Frank felt heat rise in his chest. I've got better things to do than cause trouble with you, Walter. Now open your gate and let me get my animal. He's on my property. He wandered onto your property. There's a difference. Walter smiled. Thin, sharp. Is there? Because I seem to recall your granddaddy saying the same thing about my family's water rights back in '44. Said our well wandered onto Dawson land. Took us 10 years and a judge to get it back. Frank's hands balled into fists. That's got nothing to do with this, doesn't it? They stood there. Two old men on a porch in West Texas, staring each other down over a bull and 40 years of bad blood. Clyde cleared his throat. Mr. Grimm, we're not looking for a fight. We just want the bull back. He's valuable, registered. We need him for breeding season. Walter's eyes never left Frank's. Then you should have kept your gates closed. Frank took a step forward. Walter, come back tomorrow. I'll think about it. Tomorrow? That bull could be halfway to Mexico by tomorrow. And you better hope he's not. Walter turned and walked back inside, slammed the door. Frank stood there shaking. Clyde put a hand on his shoulder. Let it go, boss. We'll come back tomorrow with the sheriff if we have to. Frank didn't move. Just stared at that closed door. Bones. 3 years of careful breeding. Bloodlines traced back to champions. The future of his herd. In Walter Grimm's pasture. And Walter knew exactly how much that burned. Frank didn't sleep that night. He sat on his porch with a bottle of whiskey he didn't open and a rifle he didn't load, staring at the fence line separating his land from Walter Grimm's. Somewhere out there, Bones was grazing in enemy territory, and Walter was letting him. Not because he wanted the bull, because he wanted Frank to suffer. The feud between the Dawsons and the Grimms went back further than either man could remember with clarity. It started with
like the
water
south
rights,
fence is
then
down.
land boundaries, then an accused theft of cattle that was never proven but never forgotten. Frank's father hated Walter's father. Their fathers hated each other's fathers. It was inheritance, passed down like the land itself, and now Bones was caught in the middle of it. Clyde appeared at dawn, boots crunching gravel. You been out here all night? Frank didn't answer. Boss, you need sleep. I need my bull back. Clyde sat down on the porch step. We could call the sheriff, file a report, make it official. Sheriff's Walter's second cousin. You think he's gonna side with me? Then what do you want to do? Frank stood. I'm going back over there, and I'm not leaving without Bones. They saddled up and rode to the Grimm property. This
is the only
time,
way
Walter was
forward,
already
Frank. We must tear
outside,
down the existing structure.
standing by
But
his
the
own
integrity
fence,
of the design
watching
relies
Bones
on it,
move
Walter.
through the
I
Hereford
don't
herd
understand.
like he'd been there for years. Frank dismounted, walked to the fence. I'm taking my bull, Walter. Walter turned slowly.
Bones, back away
That's
slowly.
so?
You're
That's so.
spooking the herd.
You had your fun. Now open the gate. Can't do that. Why not? Walter pointed. Because your bull's already done his work. Frank followed his gaze. Bones stood among the Herefords, and the cows weren't running. They were calm, grazing. Some were standing close to Bones. Too close. Frank's stomach dropped. No. Oh, yes. Walter smiled, cold, satisfied.
I swear, if they wander off
Your
again,
Angus bull
I'm
spent the
done.
night with my Hereford cows, and nature took its
We
course.
needed to move them yesterday.
Several times from what my foreman said. Frank felt his jaw go tight. You're lying. Am I? Check for yourself. But I'm betting at least 6 of those cows are bred now. Maybe more. Clyde swore under his breath. Frank stared at the herd, at Bones standing there, oblivious to the disaster he'd caused. Crossbred calves, Angus Hereford hybrids, unplanned, unregistered, worth a fraction of what purebred stock brought at auction. Walter had just
We gotta
cost him
move,
thousands,
Frank. They're onto
and
us.
Walter knew it.
If we stay here, we're finished.
You did this on purpose, Frank said quietly. I didn't open your gate, Dawson. That was your mistake. You kept him here. You could have called me last night, but you let him
Can't
stay.
just sell this land out
You
from
wanted
under
this
me,
to
Walter.
happen.
I won't allow it.
Walter shrugged.
It's already done.
I wanted to
Frank.
think about whether I'd help you or not. Took me all night.
The gate is
Decided I
open.
wouldn't. Frank's hands curled into fists.
He's
You
waiting
son
for
of-
us.
Careful. Walter's voice went hard. You're on my property, and I've got witnesses that'll say you came here looking for a fight. Clyde grabbed Frank's arm. Boss, don't. Frank stood there, shaking with rage. Every instinct screaming at him to jump that fence and settle this the way their grandfathers would have. But he wasn't his grandfather, and this wasn't 1940.
Walter, quite a
I
spread
want
you
my
got
bull
here.
back. Today.
Welcome to the ranch.
Come get
Frank.
him. Walter pointed to the gate. It's open. You can walk right in. Frank looked at the gate, then at Bones,
We need to be careful with
then
this
at
one,
Walter.
Steve.
It was
He's
a
listening.
trap.
Don't let him
Had
see
to
anything.
be. Walter wouldn't make it this easy. What's the catch? No catch. Gate's open. Bull's there. Take him. Frank studied Walter's face, looking for the lie, the angle. Found nothing. He walked to the gate, pushed it open, stepped into Walter Grimm's pasture for the first time in his life. Bones saw him coming, lifted his head, snorted. Frank approached slowly. No sudden moves. Bulls were unpredictable even on good days, and this wasn't a good day. Easy, boy. Let's go home. Bones didn't move. Frank tried again. Closer now. Hand out. Bones took a step back. Behind him, Walter laughed. Problem, Dawson. Frank ignored him. Focused on Bones. Come on, you know me. Let's go. Bones turned and walked deeper into the herd. Frank's chest tightened. The bull wasn't spooked, wasn't scared. He just didn't want to leave. 20 minutes later, Frank gave up. He walked back to the gate, boots heavy, defeat sitting on his shoulders like a load of wet hay. Walter was still there, still smiling.
Listen to me, we have a problem.
Bull doesn't
The
seem to
numbers
want to
aren't
go with
adding
you.
up, and I can't sign off on this
This isn't
yet.
over.
We need to verify everything
No,
before
I don't
Clyde
suppose it
loses
is. Frank mounted his horse, rode home without looking back. Clyde rode beside him, silent for a long time. Then, what are we gonna do, boss? Frank stared at the horizon, at his land, at the ranch his family had bled for. I don't know, but he knew one thing. Walter Grimm had just declared war, and Frank Dawson wasn't going to lose. 3 months passed. Frank tried everything. Called the sheriff, who said it was a civil matter. Called a lawyer, who said proving damages would cost more than the bull was worth. Even tried sneaking onto Walter's property at midnight with Clyde and a cattle trailer. Bones wouldn't load. The bull had gone native.
What do you mean
Made
they
himself
took
at
it?
home in the Grimm
Are you
herd like
safe?
he'd been born there.
Just tell me where you are right
Frank
now.
stopped trying after the 4th attempt. Stopped calling. Stopped riding out to the fence line every morning to stare at what he'd lost. He had a ranch to run, cattle to feed, bills to pay. Bones was gone. That was that. Then Virgil called. Virgil Patterson was the
Virgil,
only livestock vet
We
within
need
60
to discuss
miles.
the lease.
70 years old.
About time.
Drove a truck held together with rust and prayers. But he knew cattle better than anyone Frank had ever met. Frank,
You
it's
haven't said a word
Virgil.
all morning.
You got
What's
a minute?
the verdict on these cows?
What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. But I need you to come out to the Grimm place. Frank's hand tightened on the phone. Why would I do that? Because Walter asked me to call you. Says it's important. Walter can go to... Frank, just come. Trust me on this. The line went dead. Frank stood there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. Walter wanted to see him.
Looking good for this
That couldn't be
bunch, Frank.
good.
Yeah, Walter.
He drove over that
Finest calves
afternoon,
we've raised
pulled
yet.
up to the Grimm Ranch house expecting trouble. Found Virgil instead. The old vet stood by the cattle pen, clipboard in hand, looking at something inside. Virgil, what's this
Slow
about?
down. Just tell me exactly what happened.
You'll want to
out
see
there.
for yourself. Frank walked to the fence and stopped.
Are you safe?
Inside the pen stood
Gained
6
almost 3 pounds
calves,
a day since we started
maybe
that
4
thing.
months
Yeah,
old,
the muscle
strong,
definition is coming
healthy,
through well.
coats shining
We
in the
should see good
afternoon
prices
sun,
for this group.
black bodies,
Read it.
white faces, Angus
You'll
Hereford
understand
crosses.
why I couldn't tell you before.
Frank's breath caught.
This changes
Those
everything.
are Bones' calves, yeah. Virgil nodded toward the herd. Walter had me check the whole group. Turns out Bones bred 11 cows that night. These 6 were born first. The rest are due in the next month. Frank stared at the calves. They were beautiful. Compact frames, muscular. The kind of hybrid vigor you couldn't plan for. Why are you showing me this? Because Walter got a call yesterday. Buyer from Colorado. Name's Otis Grant. Runs a grass-fed beef operation. He saw one of these calves at auction, tracked down where it came from, and wants to buy the whole lot. Frank turned. How much? Virgil handed him a paper. Frank read the number, read it again. That's per head? Per head. Frank did the math in his head. 11 calves, that price. His throat went dry. That's $500,000. Give or take. Virgil took the paper back. And that's just the first generation. If these calves breed true, if the genetics hold, Walter's sitting on a whole new market. Crossbred stock that finishes faster, grades higher, costs less to raise. Frank looked back at the calves. $500,000 from an accident, from his bull, on Walter's land. Where's Walter now? Inside, waiting for you. Frank found him in the kitchen, sitting at a table scarred with 50 years of use, coffee cup in hand, staring out the window. Walter didn't turn when Frank walked in. You see them? I saw them. Virgil tell you about the buyer? He did. Walter took a sip of coffee. Those calves wouldn't exist without Bones. No, they wouldn't. And Bones is your bull. Frank said nothing. Walter set down his cup, turned to face him. I've been thinking about this for 3 months.
Do not
about what's
mistake my
right,
generosity
what's fair.
for weakness.
And I keep coming back to the same thing.
We are done when I
What's
say
that?
we are
I
done.
hate you, Frank. I've hated you my whole
What do you
life.
think of that one right there?
Just like my daddy hated
He's
yours.
solid.
And his
But this
daddy
one
before
here
that.
has better color.
It's what we do. Dawson's and Grimm's, we fight. Frank's jaw tightened. Get to the point. The point is, I'm tired. Walter's voice softened. I'm 58 years old. My son Earl doesn't want the ranch. Says he's moving to Dallas soon as I'm gone. And I've spent 40 years hating a man over a water well neither of us remembers. He stood, walked to the window.
Look, right here on the 15th.
Those
that's when
calves
the
are
vet
worth
is
more
scheduled.
money than
We
I've
can't
seen in a
push it back.
decade.
I understand, but,
Maybe 2.
but we have
And
a
they came
problem.
from your bull and my cows. Half and half, whether we like it or not. Walter turned around. So here's what I'm proposing. We split it, 50-50. The sale, the calves, the whole operation. We breed this line proper, register it, build something neither of us could do alone. Frank stared at him. You want to go into business, with me? I want to stop losing. Walter's voice was steady. And I think you do too. Frank looked out the window, at the calves grazing in the pen. At 40 years of bad blood and broken fences, at $500,000, I need to think about it. You've got 24 hours. Otis is coming tomorrow to see the stock. If we're doing this, we do it together. If not, I sell them myself and you get nothing. Frank walked to the door, stopped. Why now, Walter? Why after all this time? Walter smiled, sad, tired. Because I'm too old to keep hating you, Frank, and too broke to turn down a miracle. Frank didn't go home. He drove to the cemetery instead. His wife Mabel had been gone 12 years, buried on a hill overlooking the ranch she'd loved more than he deserved. He sat on the grass beside her headstone, hat in his lap. I know what you'd say, Frank said to the silence. You'd tell me to take the deal. Stop being stubborn. Stop carrying grudges that don't belong to me. The wind blew through the mesquite trees. But it's not that simple, Mabel. That's Walter Grimm, the man whose father tried to steal our water,
That one there.
whose
See the
grandfather
limp?
testified against mine in court.
Yeah.
40 years of bad blood doesn't just
Means
wash away
trouble
because
for
of
the
money. He picked at the grass. Does it? No answer came. Just the wind and the distant sound of cattle lowing in the valley below. Frank closed his eyes.
Yes.
$500,000. Maybe more if the line bred true. enough
Are
to
you
replace
sure we can
equipment,
trust him, Walter?
fix the barn,
This whole deal feels
hire
off.
hands he
He's
desperately
good
needed,
for it.
secure the
We just need
ranch
to
for
hold
another
steady.
generation. If there was
Look
another
here, Walter.
generation,
The
he had
boundary
no
is
children,
clearly marked
no
right
one to
along
leave it
this
to.
creek.
Just
These
1,200
papers prove it.
acres and a lifetime of work that would
You know,
dissolve the
this is
moment
fair,
he died.
Walter. It secures the
Unless-
legacy you built here.
Frank opened
We
his
shake
eyes.
on it now. All right, Frank.
You'd tell me I'm a
You got
fool for
yourself
even
a deal.
hesitating. He stood, brushed off his jeans, put his hat back on. All right, Mabel, I'll try it your way. The next morning, Frank drove back to the Grimm Ranch. Otis Grant was already there. Big man, late 50s,
Pleasure doing business
expensive
with you,
truck.
Otis.
The
Likewise,
kind of buyer
Frank.
who could write a check
Looks
on
like
the
we got a
spot and
deal.
not blink. Walter stood by the cattle pen with Virgil, saw Frank pull up, didn't smile, didn't frown, just waited. Frank walked over. I'm in. Walter nodded once. 50-50, everything. Profits, decisions, work. 50-50. Otis looked between them. You two partners now? We are, Walter said. Good. Because I'm not buying unless this is legitimate. I need papers, registration, proof of lineage, both bulls and cows documented.
50,000 an
Frank
acre,
looked at
and
Walter.
we close by the end of
We
the
can
year.
do that.
That's my final offer, Walter.
Then we've got a
You
deal.
got yourself a deal, Frank.
Otis
It's a
pulled out his
fine piece of
checkbook.
land.
I'll take all 11 calves when they're weaned, and I want first right of refusal on next year's crop. He wrote the check, handed it to Walter. Walter stared at it, then handed it to Frank. You hold it. I don't trust myself not to spend it all tonight. Frank almost smiled. Otis shook both their hands. Gentlemen, you're sitting on something special here. Don't waste it. He drove off, leaving Frank and Walter standing by the pen. Virgil cleared his throat. I'll leave you two to figure out the details. He left. Frank and Walter stood in silence. Then Walter said, We need ground rules. Agreed. You stay off my property unless we're working cattle. I stay off yours. Fine. We split all costs. Feed, vet bills, labor, down the middle. Fine. And if this doesn't work, if we can't make it a year without killing each other, we dissolve the partnership and go back to hating each other in peace. Frank looked at him. That's your plan? 1 year? You got a better one? Frank thought about it. About Mabel, about the ranch, about dying alone with nothing to show for a lifetime of work except a gravestone next to hers. 1 year, Frank said, but we do it right. No shortcuts, no lies. We build this thing proper, or we don't build it at all. Walter extended his hand. Frank stared at it. 40 years. 3 generations of feuding.
Watch out, this
Water
section
rights
is
and
loose.
stolen cattle and
Got
court
it.
battles that bankrupted both families.
Pull
All of
harder
it
on your
sitting in
end.
that outstretched hand. Frank took it. They shook, firm, brief. When they let go, neither man spoke. Walter turned toward his house, stopped, looked back. For what it's worth, Frank, my father was wrong about the water well. I found the survey documents last year in the attic. Boundary line was always where your granddad said it was. Frank's chest tightened. Why didn't you say something? Because I'm stubborn and stupid, and I didn't want to admit my whole life was built on a lie. He walked inside. Frank stood there holding a check for $250,000, staring at the house where his enemy lived. Former enemy. Partner now. He got in his truck and drove home, and for the first time in 40 years, he didn't look at the Grimm Ranch
Been
with
through
hate.
a lot, this one has.
He looked at it with hope.
Still
3
reliable,
years
though.
later, Frank stood at the
A
fence
good
line
horse
that
knows
separated
its worth.
Dawson land from Grimm land, watching a crew dismantle the barbed wire that had divided the properties for generations. The posts came down easy, rotted
Been
through
30
after
years since we
decades
stood
of
in this
weather.
barn, Frank.
Nobody had
Things
maintained them in
change,
years
but the
because
important
nobody cared
stuff,
anymore.
It stays the same. It surely
Walter
does,
walked
Walter.
up beside him, leaning on a cane he'd started using after his hip surgery last winter. Feels strange, Walter said, watching it come down. Does. My daddy would have shot me for this. Frank almost smiled. Mine too. Behind them, 47 head of registered Grimm Dawson cattle grazed in what used to be contested territory. The crossbreed line had exploded. Buyers from 6 states. Waiting lists 2 years long. A breeding program that put both ranches on the map. What started as an accident had become an empire. Walter shifted his weight. Virgil says Bones is slowing down. 12 years old now. Probably got one more breeding season in him. Then we retire him proper. Pasture rest. He's earned it. Agreed. They stood in silence, watching the fence fall. Then Walter said, Earl's taking over my half. Made it official last week.
If we secure those
Frank
mineral
nodded.
deeds by the end of the month,
He'd known it was
we
coming.
control the entire pasture.
Walter's health wasn't what it used to be. He's a good man. He'll do right by it. He wants to buy you out. Frank turned.
Everything we've
What?
done, it led to this
Not now,
moment.
but eventually.
I see that now.
When you're ready.
My
He wants
God,
to
I
keep the
finally see
operation
it.
going. Keep the Grim Dawson name. But he needs to own it outright to get the loans he wants for expansion. Frank looked at the land, at the cattle, at everything
Welcome
he
to
and
the
Walter
office,
had built
Clyde.
from a mistake and a handshake.
Thanks, Frank. It's great.
I don't
to
have
finally meet
anybody
your-
to leave this to, Walter. You know that. I know. That's why I'm asking. Let Earl buy you out. Good price, fair terms, and you get to see this thing keep going instead of watching it die with you. Frank felt something tighten in his chest. He'd spent 40 years hating Walter Grimm, 3 years working beside him, and now Walter was offering him a way out that felt more like family than business. I'll think about it. Take your time. Offer stands whenever you're ready. Walter turned to leave, stopped. Frank? Yeah? I'm glad your damn bull jumped that fence. Frank looked at him, really looked at him, at the man who'd been his enemy, his partner, and somewhere along the way had become the closest thing to a friend he had left. Me too, Walter. 6 months later, Frank signed the papers. Earl Grimm became sole owner of Grimm Dawson Cattle Company. Paid Frank enough to retire comfortable. Kept him on as a consultant, which really meant Frank still showed up 3 times a week to argue about breeding schedules. Some things never changed. Frank moved into town. Small house, quiet street. For the first time in 60 years, he didn't wake up to cattle. It felt wrong for about a week. Then it felt like freedom. He visited Mabel's grave on a Sunday. Sat on the grass like always. We did it, he said. Turned a mistake into something that'll outlive us both. Walter's grandson is already talking about taking over when Earl retires. 3 generations. All because Bones jumped a fence and I was too stubborn to let it go. The wind blew through the mesquite trees. Frank smiled. You were right, Mabel. You always were. He stood, brushed off his jeans, put his hat back on, drove to the Grimm ranch one last time. Walter sat on his porch, cane across his lap, watching the sunset. Frank sat down beside him without asking. Beer? Walter offered. Yeah. They drank in silence as the sky turned orange and gold. 2 old men who'd spent a lifetime hating each other, sharing a porch and a sunset, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing they'd built something that mattered. Finally, Walter spoke. Hell of a thing, wasn't it? Frank nodded. Hell of a thing. The sun dropped below the horizon, and for the first time in 3 generations, the Dawson and Grimm families were at peace.